Howdy guys, Rex here. So we're taking a look at the SigSauer TANGO6. A lot of folks were asking about this for quite a long time, and I finally did get a chance to run it through some paces yesterday. I got it zeroed. I put quite a few rounds through it, tried a few different tasks like setting the zero stop, things like that, did a box test, return to zero test, all that kind of stuff. Got a little bit of trigger time on it and have an opinion to report, initial opinion anyways. We'll follow this up with a full review. This is just kind of a quick first impression type video on what I've observed so far. To give you a brief overview, SigSauer, well-known company out of Switzerland, well-known for their pistols and stuff like that, is an outfit that a lot of people respect and brand. Even if this deal's made in Japan, this optic is here. But with the brand they've developed over the years of high quality, good attention to details, that brand has kind of carried over into even some of the stuff they've been outsourcing in terms of the quality perception. And so I'm always very skeptical when you have these European companies and these really, really good at branded American companies outsource a lot of their work overseas, particularly Asia. And sometimes it turns out really good if they keep up their quality control, and sometimes it's really just putting their brand on something a little bit cheaper for them to purchase, a bigger profit margin, things like that, easier to maintain the supply and compete in the lower price brackets for optics, right? All that being said, I finally got to try this thing out, and it's actually not a bad scope, guys. It's pretty nice. And for the $2,300 price range, what they're asking for these things, this is actually a pretty good option. Like I said before, I was very skeptical on how it would perform, particularly in the tracking reliability, because a lot of other optics made in Japan in this price range have difficulty doing that. But this one has so far been working pretty good. Go over a few of the quick features real quick. It's a 34 millimeter main tube, so that's a nice big main tube. It's going to give you a lot of adjustment range. I think the total elevation adjustment available in this one's 23 mils, which is plenty to get you way farther than you can shoot for most applications. The windage is the same, 23 mils of windage if I remember correctly. We got a sunshade on this one, so it looks a little bit longer. It threads in right here. This is a 6-24 with a 50 millimeter objective lens, and it's got kind of interesting material they're using on some of this. It's not aluminum. It looks like some kind of glass resin or some kind of polymer. Really, really tough stuff though. There's the 3 little screws when you're slipping the scales on the turrets and doing your zero stop, and sometimes on the aluminum designs from Japan, even in other scopes that are in this price range, you be very, very critical on exactly how much torque you apply to these screws. And if you over torque them or get the specs wrong, you can have some deformation of these turrets on other brands. And that's why they have some tracking issues where it'll give you some clicks, it'll give you some movement, and all of a sudden it'll just totally slip past the inner mechanism. It'll still be clicking, making the clicking sound, you'll feel it, but it's not properly attached to the inner post anymore. And so this one, actually, just putting the screws in and out on here, very, very rigid material. There's no flexing at all. And the screws definitely have some bite in there, just due to how the screw is threaded into this, I don't know what kind of material this is. When we do the more thorough review, I will give you all the details on that stuff. But it was grabbing in very nicely, so I don't see how any of that stuff would back out over time, or how you would have a lot of the issues associated with some of the aluminum designs that are a bit more flimsy. If you can feel any kind of flex to it when you get this cap off of here, that might be a potential issue. But these, I actually do like the materials. You can't really scratch it, how you're getting the Allen key into the little hole. Sometimes you miss and it would scratch up an aluminum scope. This thing is it's monolithic material. It's all the way through, and so you can't really scratch it. So it's pretty heavy duty stuff. Style-wise, I don't know if I like it, but it's actually pretty nice. You got the same material here and on the illumination knob and the parallax knob as well. And also back here, where we have the magnification adjustment ring, it's the same material as well. It's very, very grippy. I do like the knurled pattern they have on here. They have little points, little diamond points, similar to like a check ring, like a knurled pattern. And it's very, very easy to grip on there. You're not going to slide around. So ergonomically, it feels nice. Stylistically, it's kind of futuristic looking, but functionally, it's very, very heavy-duty stuff that I think is probably superior to some of the aluminum. So first thing we did is we zeroed this thing. Zero stop mechanism is interesting how it's put together. It's probably similar to some of the other Japanese designs that I have not yet tested. But this particular one, you take off the outer cap, and I'll show this in the comprehensive review that we're going to do after we test this thing a bit more. You take off the outer turret cap. There's an inner part in there. There's a screw in the middle. You got to take that out, and then there's a little circle deal in there, which is actually the zero stop mechanism, and you got to set that on one side of the post to the other. And we'll show you in the review. But there's 3 screws in there, so it's a little bit complex how they have it set up, but it's a little bit weird. But after a few minutes, not even reading the instructions at that time out on the range, you always forget to grab the instructions, right? We got it figured out pretty quick. And so setting the zero stop was a little bit different than some of the other mechanisms I've seen, but like I said, I finally did look up the instructions later, and they have it worded pretty easily in there. Just follow those instructions. And we'll do a tutorial possibly just on that when we go out to the range next time. We borosighted it, got it on paper, and then I tuned it up. It seems like the tracking is actually pretty good. We used the box to bench targets, which have a tracking test on them. You aim at the lower dot, and then you dial up 7.5 mils and you still aim at the lower dot to see how it's tracking. And the tracking on this was pretty much identical with all the other Tier 1 rated Japanese optics I've tested before, like the Night Force, the Platinum Series, Primary Arms, Vortex, when they're tracking well. It's the same amount. So the tracking graduation precision is actually pretty good. It's not exactly the same as some of the European stuff, but it's actually pretty good. It's right in the same ballpark as most over-the-counter upper tier 2 Japanese scopes. And so it was good. The main thing that I was concerned about was the tracking reliability, which is it always going to go up and down? Is it going to end up in the same spot? Are you going to be able to return to zero? And that's something that you have to mess around with a bunch. And, you can test it over time, induce recoil, dial up and down, index all your firing solutions, eventually come back down to zero. It should be in the same spot, right? So what I did, I didn't fire off a whole heck of a lot of rounds yesterday, like maybe around 100 rounds. Just shoot that paper, dialing around on it, and seeing how it tracked. And the return to zero was dead on. It was always came back to where it went. And it repeated wherever you would dial. So if you dial 7.5, it would go there every time. It wouldn't go half a ways there, and then you shoot a few and it work its way up, which is something you will find in a lot of over-the-counter type scopes. But this deal actually did track very well. And I played with it. I got Western on the dials, and I was cranking up and down and scrolling around with it quite a bit. And so far, it's working pretty good. So we'll give you the full comprehensive review when we come in to the full details later. This has one of the features, I don't know if I like it or hate it, but you have to pull up on the deal, on the turret cap, to unlock it so you can index your stuff, right? And then when you're dialed in someplace, you push it back down, and there's little gear teeth in there, and it'll lock it. And you have that for both your windage and your elevation. It's nice so you don't accidentally slip something once you get it dialed in. But it's a good feature. I just wish it could be executed with more robustness in the mechanism, if that makes sense. But this is a very popular deal. A lot of these scopes in this style have that feature. So I'm not going to complain against it. If that's your thing, then it actually does work pretty good. The reticle is a mil scale reticle deal, and it has a grid pattern laid out like this, and we'll show you in the comprehensive review. It actually is pretty nice reticle. It works fine. It's 6 to 24 power, so when you cranked all the way up to 24 power, there's a tiny little dot in the middle, which actually is very easy to center even on a small dot at 100 yards on paper for getting a perfect zero or for low development or testing ammunition or whatever. And so it has a nice fine aiming point. The reticle did match the turrets exactly in terms of where it tracks. And so that's one thing that a guy wants to look at. The clarity is, you know, it's Japanese glass, so it's not bad. It's pretty darn good. It's not like super warm feel to it like you're going to have on some of the shot glass out of Germany or stuff like that, the tier 1 European glass. But it's not bad for Japanese glass. Pretty comparable with other stuff in the price range. In the main deal that a guy can communicate at this point without having too much battle experience out there slamming it around yet on the boulders and such, which we're going to do here relatively soon, take it out and shoot it a bit, is that I think that the most attractive thing about this optic is honestly the unique feature sets. It has, and this is something that's been executed on other optics as well, got a little fiber optic deal for your magnification ring, which is interesting because when you're laying behind it, it glows nice, but then you have to still come up here and look at what number you're on. So if you just memorize the position, it's a pretty cool feature. It looks cool, right? The smoothness of this magnification ring is very nice. It's actually put together pretty good. But I think that I was getting to the point, the main thing that I find that will be attractive for the market will be the feature set. It's unique. It's got a unique style to it, got a unique feel to it. And it's functionally, it works. And so all that being said, a lot of guys who are asking for a long time what my opinion was on this deal. I think that it's a decent optic. And in the price range, I think that it's one of the better options if you're going to go with Japanese glass in the lower $2,000 price range. I think that's one of your better options in that general category. We'll do a more thorough comparative analysis with some of the other optics I got, US Optics, and also like Steiner, the stuff in the $2,000 price range, and kind of see how it compares to those. Just kind of on a glance, we'll see. It did track very good, but we'll give a more thorough review soon, but it's definitely not a bad scope. And so that's my honest first impressions, unscripted, just talking off the cuff after trying it all day yesterday and getting a little bit of a suntan before the blizzard blows in tonight. So another blizzard coming, guys. Thought I'd share that with you. I know a lot of folks are curious what the deal is, and it takes us a while to put together all our thoughts in a collected full-bore review where we go through everything in super good detail. But that's my after-action report from the zeroing session and from setting the zero stop and getting to mess with it initially. All right, hang around for the full review. We'll give you all the details, and we'll be nice about it, but we're going to be honest as well. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Catch you around.